I'm here with Josh Bear from Twisted Twist. I had class all day today. I'm here with Josh Bear from Twisted Pixel, and I just played Defector. Defector. I'm gonna keep this all in.
Yeah, dude. I think it's better though.
I've had a full day at school.
I think it's better.
We're here on the 9th floor of a San Francisco building, and I just played through the first level of the game. That wasn't actually the entire first level.
Not even the entire level. Yeah, just a portion of it.
So 2 different story paths available on that level. A little bit about the game. It's a spy game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's an action spy adventure.
And we are live. Excellent. No need to say anything.
With different choices you can make in the dialogue. You can interrogate people correctly, incorrectly. I tried to do a couple of the incorrect segments, make the guy angry, and that opens up different opportunities, whereas if you hit all the right notes in your interrogations, and you can really get some information. In the mission I played, you got time to look around the guy's room and find extra weapons and health kits and stuff like that. So that in particular was really cool. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, this game's in kind of the same vein as Lone Echo, another story-based Oculus game. And what I'm finding right now is, as someone who likes to show VR off to their friends, VR can sometimes be hard to sell to non-VR users. Why should you play it? So why would people be interested in your game in particular as their first experience in VR?
That's a great question. I think you have to make an experience worth putting the helmet on for. So if you're going to put the helmet on and hook it all up, put these things in your hands and you can't see anything, it has to do something different that you wouldn't be able to do in the console space.
Yeah.
And, Lone Echo is a good example of kind of the feeling of weightlessness as you kind of move around and you grab things. You could do that on a console graphically, right? Or you could do it with a controller, but to get that feeling, to actually kind of feel that you're there, really VR is like the best way to do that. For our game, for Defector, you can say, I want to drive a car out a plane, another plane, and shoot some guys as I do it. And that you could absolutely do that in a console game, but to actually make it feel like you're driving that car out and kind of give that little bit of sense of the pit of your stomach, like, oh my God, actually feel it, you can only really do that in VR. So the game has to be worth putting the helmet on for, and that's kind of our design philosophy. Let's design something so cool and so crazy that people are going to want to put it on and show a friend and be like, you got to see this, you got to check this out, while still trying to maintain the narrative and the length and the gameplay breadth that console games have.
Yeah. So speaking of driving a car and then shooting people as you drive the car, I just saw that you guys seem to have a lot of different game mechanics in this game. If you think of a game like other games I played, Sprint Vector, it's all about running. Gorn, it's all about hand-to-hand combat. In this game, you have there's a little bit of driving. I'm interested to see if there's more of that later on. There's hand-to-hand combat. There's shooting. You guys have a lot of different elements in this game for people to experience. I think that's really just a compliment, actually, and not actually a question.
Well, I mean, we're trying to push it, right? You want to get people interested in VR, and you want to show all the things it can do. So, lots of different parts of Defector push it in different ways. So. There are other gameplay mechanics that, of course you're going to shoot in the game and you're going to drive things. You're going to punch people. You're going to climb things. But there's a lot of other stuff that's going into it because you want to make sure everything feels unique and special all the time. What you have to be careful of, though, is, the more unique one-off type of situations you build, you have to make sure that they feel tight and well-designed. Otherwise, you have a bunch of kind of cool mechanics, but if none of them feel cool, it's just like, well, that kind of sucked, right? Yeah. So it's really trying to take the time to make those feel really good. And it's just, working with a great team back at the studio, making sure that all turns out really good.
In the context of a spy game, this really fits, hand-to-hand combat, if you want to be a little quieter, shooting, climbing things, you really set the backdrop well to have all these different mechanics come together for the player to experience. And it really helps with the pacing of the game, in my opinion. You're not always just shooting You're not always climbing. And while there's some games that just do climbing, like climbing, and they do climbing really well, it's nice to see you branch out into other things. The replayability is one thing I want to talk about. So there's a part of the level where I got to select from 2 different action branches. And as you go through the level, different things happen. And then when you get to that split, that adds a little bit of replayability. And then can you talk about some other things that, make it so the players want to go back, or make it so new players playing all have different experiences that you've done in the game?
So we have the action branches in like every level in the game. So you always had those big choices that are completely different. The other thing we're trying to do, and it's looking back at kind of like using reference for older games. So I look back at like the Tony Hawk games. You look back at Tony Hawk games, like some of the original ones, like I think Tony Hawk 1 through 4. One of the cool things they did is you go into, say, a level, and it would be like, hey, there are 10 objectives in this level. You only need, say, 4 of them to actually pass and go to the next level. But here are all these other ones, and they're just really fun to do, and it kind of opens up the world. Like I think Tony Hawk had like, find the videotape, collect the letters to spell skate, and get this many points, stuff. So that's always kind of cool for replayability in a level. So for Defector, we've put in an objective system where you can bring up your objectives, and you see these tiers of different objectives. And really, your main path to beat the level, you might only have to accomplish a handful of those. But then we have all these other ones you can come back through the level and play that'll open up new little pieces of that level, whether it's new dialogue or maybe a new little area or a new object. And then as you complete those objectives, they'll open up things for you later in the game. So whether it's new cheat codes or new weapons or unlockable like little bits of how we made the game, just all types of stuff to keep you going back and playing. Do you have to? No, but it encourages you to go check out more of the game, and we think that's just like a cool thing to add.
Yeah, so there's kind of a persistent agent in the game. And so, like, for example, that ring that I got in that mission, do I get to keep that?
Yeah, so when you find the ring in one level, there will be kind of a base that your character and all the teammates kind of can go to in between levels. So now that you found that ring will be back at the base, and you have the opportunity to bring that into other levels or use it in other things.
That's cool. So there actually is a reason from a gameplay perspective to do these side missions, because you want to get all the fancy gadgets. That's another cool thing about the spy genre, is that you're free to use all these wacky, crazy gadgets. You're not just constrained to just a gun and a knife.
You just think of a lot of crazy stuff, and especially in VR, being able to touch and grab with the touch controllers. There's some cool stuff you can do with that we're trying to plan on to implement in the game.
So I want to talk about the hand-to-hand combat. There's one segment at the end of one of the action branches where you get into a hand-to-hand fight with some guy, some contextual, throw him into a mirror, throw him into some glass. And the way you guys did the hand-to-hand combat, there's a little bit of offensive and defensive, strikes to the head. I did some uppercuts there, and then there's blocking. Tell me about the challenges for developing hand-to-hand combat in VR, because if you think, it reminded me a lot of Uncharted 4. At the very end of the game, you got into a sword fight, and there was block left, block right, and then counterattacks and stuff like that. And so it reminds me a lot of the hand-to-hand in your game. But in Uncharted, it's square and triangle. In this game, you actually have to physically move your arms. So I want to know a little bit about how you make these systems for VR, because it's not just 2 buttons anymore. It's a bunch of different angles. I'm sure the strength of hits, lots of different things to take into account that. And on the PS4, it's just 2 buttons.
Yeah, it's a challenge in VR to make the hand-to-hand feel like we were talking about earlier. To make it feel engaging and fun, and actually feel like there's weight behind your punches and that it means something. Because really, you have to kind of design it around player expectations, and you have to remember that most players or people who play a hand-to-hand fighting thing are not fighters, right? So a good example is, when you look at, say, the Bourne films, they do the kind of Krav Maga style of fighting really cool. They're really up close, right? They're kind of like in each other's face. They're using elbows, and they're throwing knees and all these things. So we messed around with that. Like, it'd be so cool to throw elbows. But you're going to have 1 out of 20 people throw an elbow. Right? So you're going to spend all this development time on something where most people are just going to kind of gently throw their fists out. And it's like, well, that's not going to feel very cool. So you have to kind of do the work to make it feel cool for the people who don't know how to fight, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into that. And I think it's a balance between making sure people who really do get into the fighting can feel like they're actually doing cool stuff. And one of the ways we did that, besides the normal velocity and different hit reactions, is to do the areas where you can pick someone up and throw them in through something, whether it's the mirror, the shower, kind of like those mini fatality moments, so you can make everybody feel cool.
Reminds me of the Assassin's Creed series. You throw a person in the water, you kick them down off of a building, or push them down a well or something like that. Those kind of contextual melee segments
you want to make sure everybody can feel cool. So one of the things, and I don't think you'll see in the there's also bonuses. So doing things maybe we don't teach you, but if people do, they can try. So, for instance, the dude you fought in the melee, if you grab him, you can actually headbutt him for real. And
I didn't even try that.
It'll work. And one of the objectives is, I forget what we named it, but see if you can take out that guy with the headbutt. Just so it's like, I got to try that. So it gets you to kind of go back.
So the segment you're talking about is when you grab him by his lapel, and then you can throw him around. You can also headbutt him.
You can headbutt him.
I was thinking of kneeing him. That was one of my first reactions, but your feet aren't tracked. But that would have been cool.
But it's interesting. One of the things we're playing with too is, even though it can't track your knees or your feet, what happens when you? Because a lot of the VR stuff, it's everybody's punching. What happens if you interact with someone who's throwing kicks at you? Like, what type of cool stuff can you do with that? So we have some ideas for that we're playing around with too, to kind of just make it a little bit unique compared to some other kind of fisticuff stuff on VR. All right.
So there are certain guns that are easy to use in VR. Pistols, one-handed weapons in general. I find it's a little more difficult for games to have sniper rifles, assault rifles, things that require two hands. And a few games do it really well. And I didn't see in your guys' game, I'm sure, it's only the first level, any assault rifles or anything that required two hands. How are you guys going about, if you can talk about any of the later levels or other weapons I didn't see yet, how are you guys going about making it so that two-handed weapons feel good? Because one of the issues I come across, say you're holding a sniper rifle, your hands in real life when you're holding a long, or even like a stick weapon, they're lined up just because you're holding a weapon that's straight. In VR, you're just floating in the air. So how are you guys going about the use of two-handed weapons in your game, whether it be guns or melee weapons, a bamboo staff, anything like that?
So there are definitely two-handed weapons in the game.
Confirmed. You heard it first.
Yes.
Exclusive
there are
information.
Two-handed weapons. How to use that's tricky. So the way we're kind of going about it right now is not leaning too heavily on realism, if that makes sense. So if you lean on realism, it's going to feel too weird. So part of the reason we have you put a second hand on a weapon is because you're going to do something with that second hand, if that makes sense. So say you had some assault rifle or even a pump action shotgun. Instead of trying to just mimic the real life weapon, we're trying to do some other things with the second hand that makes it worthwhile, and maybe stabilizing the gun in a different way than you normally would, so you don't feel so not one-to-one with it, if that makes sense. So we're playing around with that type of stuff. Or even little things like, if say you're holding like a machine gun, sure, because there's no weight in VR, you can't simulate weight. You could hold it with one arm. Note that not anyone would be able to hold a machine gun out. But when you fire it through animation and through the rumble in the controller is like huge, and the animation kind of like
goes crazy.
Oh man, it's going crazy. But if I stabilize it with a second hand, there's rumble in both controllers now, but the rumble is more evened out. So even a little thing like that, anything we can do to help bias the feel of weight seems to really help.
Yeah, because there is that issue in VR. I'm wielding a 40-pound greatsword, but I'm actually holding Oculus Touch controllers. And that is a challenge, trying to make the player feel like they're holding a big weapon, and then as they're firing that weapon, there's also some kind of impact. And there's actually recoil, and the actual haptic feedback of like shooting that gun is mimicked as closely as possible.
Well, it's the same with picking up the guy when you picked him up in the bathroom. So we don't let you just kind of move him all around.
You can't make him fly.
It would feel ragdollish, and you don't feel any weight. So the way we handle it is we let you kind of have an area you can move him. But if you break out of that area, we automatically break your hands off and reset him kind of simulate that you just can't pick some
I can't
guy up and just
this dude's 200 pounds.
Pizza dough or something like that, So it's little things like that to try to think about. And it's the same thing, like if we want you tied up, you can't keep you from doing this, right? So it's like, well, how do we make that feel right? So there's a lot of thought that goes into it that takes more effort and more development time than it would if you were making it for, PS4 or something like that.
All right. Yeah, game seems pretty cool.
Thanks,
last thing I want to talk about, what are your top 3 favorite VR games so far?
Man, these are always unfair questions.
They don't have to be in order. I give you mine.
So not in order. Yeah, what are yours?
Super Hot, Pavlov, Sprint Vector.
So I would say probably for me, putting Wilson's Heart in there because I worked on it. I'm really proud of that game. Robo Recall.
Good.
Just kind of reaching behind your back and pulling out a huge gun to blow a robot away. It's pretty
And
satisfying.
then the juggling and
they did a really good job.
Super good job. What was the third one?
Lone Echo. Lone Echo's good.
Have you played very much Echo Arena?
I don't, because I don't have any friends.
Oh, yeah, that game can be hard without friends. Yeah, I've run into some pretty crazy teams online. Yeah, the zero gravity stuff.
In space is really cool.
And so you guys are in the same kind of category of narrative. I'm not a spaceman in real life, and I'm also not a spy in real life. I'm not jumping out of planes.
But it'd be fun to be one in VR. So, hey, why not?
Hey, do you have any release date on the game soon?
This year.
This year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else about the game you want to mention?
I hope it's going to kind of push the people who aren't VR believers yet a little closer to wanting to put that helmet on and trying out VR a little more. I mean, that's always the goal, right? Like when you're developing for VR, it's like you just want to get more people interested in it.
Yeah.
So hopefully this will be one of those games that can do that.
Because I'll buy pretty much any Oculus major title. It's just I'm interested in how these games help me sell the headset itself.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you'll have more friends to play with in Echo Arena.
Absolutely. That's finally.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you for the interview.
Yeah, thank you, man.
The game is fantastic. Like you guys heard, launching later this year. All right, I'm out. I don't really have an outro for that.